As well as the multiple choice questions, in section 1 there are also short answer questions which require you to write your answers in the lines provided. The mark value could range between 2 and 8, and you use the number of lines that are provided as a guide to your response. You should be able to score top marks by writing an answer that fits the space provided. As long as you're using accurate historical information, you'll be fine. And there is that one extended response, and two pages roughly of lines are provided for that. If you need extra paper, you can ask for it, but generally you should be able to write concisely within the space provided and still score top marks. Well, what are the examiners looking for in these written responses? They're looking for both your skills and your knowledge. So the skills that they're assessing as your ability to locate information from sources, to draw conclusions based on evidence from those sources, your ability to analyse sources for usefulness and reliability, and your ability to explain and evaluate different perspectives and interpretations of the past. They're the core skills that we look for. With knowledge, and you do need knowledge in order to do well in this paper, you need to know about significant events, individuals, issues, groups and sites. You need to use historical terms and concepts, and you need to know sources. I can't stress how important it is, especially in section 1, that you are familiar with a range of sources. So, this table is an example of how you might prepare yourself to use sources effectively in written responses. It's not enough just to drop the name of a source. You need to be able to explain how that source helps you answer the question. And one effective way of revising is to do an evidence table for each of the topics that you're preparing. This table, this evidence table is about women in Pompeii and Herculaneum. And you can see that the four sources that are chosen are all different. One's an advertisement, a statue, some electoral graffiti, and a wax tablet or wax tablets of a business transaction. So to know about the sources is one thing, but to know what they tell you about society is the other, and you need to have both dimensions in order to be able to use sources effectively in an ancient history response. So if we take the first one, the to-let advertisement, that actually indicates to us that a woman in Pompeii owned one of the largest properties. And not only did she own the property, she managed it to the extent that she leased out part of it. And this advertisement uses her name and the leasing arrangement. The statues of the women in Proconsul Bulbus's family give us some idea that women from high status family were publicly acknowledged for things that they did themselves or for their own families, benefactions. Wealthy families dedicated all sorts of public facilities to the town, and in return these statues were erected to them. The electoral graffiti in Pompeii is interesting because we know women couldn't vote and they didn't stand for political office, and yet the graffiti suggests that they took a very active interest in politics, and a lot of the graffiti from women show that they supported particular candidates, and in a couple of instances they satirised or insulted other candidates. So no vote, true, but interested in politics, yes, from the sources, the graffiti. The wax tablet source is a fascinating one because it shows us that two wealthy women, Poppaea Notae and Decidia Magaris, entered into a transaction where one lent the other money, quite a substantial amount of money, and the one who borrowed the money put up 2 slaves as surety. As it turned out, she couldn't repay the loan, so the slaves were confiscated and they were sold at auction in order to recoup the loss. So that's an important tablet, because people sometimes generalise and say that, oh, women in the ancient world had no power, had no influence, men did everything. But these sources show us that that wasn't the case, especially not in Pompeii. One of the features of ancient history is the finite range of resources, and so there are some significant gaps in the evidence. And the beauty of the subject is, with a thoughtful approach, your theory about the gaps can be just as valid as that of a historian or an archaeologist. So when it comes to gaps in the evidence, the syllabus requires that you consider this and what it means for the study of the topic. So with women, the big gap that we have is that we know nothing about the perspective of poorer women. They have left no written record, or no record that has been recovered yet. So this sort of table is really good to put on the outside of your topic folders when you come to revising at the end of the course. If you know just 3 or 4 good sources and what they reveal about the topic, then you've got the ammunition to write a really authoritative response. What I have here for you is one that I would get you to do yourself, and about the eruption. In a lecture situation, I would get students to pair up and to do this. So perhaps in your own time you could use this as part of your revision to identify 3 or 4 sources about the eruption and what each one tells us about the eruption.